Welcome to World Transits Today. I'm Art Granoff. Look me up at referenceastrology.com. And today, I'm going to show the world transits for November in archetypal astrology. But actually, I'm mostly going to show November 5th, US Presidential Election Day, probably the most important day of the year. See what's going on archetypally. So here we go. Let's start today, November 1, 2024, with the new moon, Sun conjunct moon. The sun represents our individual personality, how we are in the world, our outward journey. And the moon refers to our inner life, our inner person, our sensitivity, our softness. So when the sun and moon get together, remember, it takes 29 days or so for the moon to orbit the sun. It starts out together on the new moon and ends the cycle on the new moon. The alpha and the omega all together. Many mythologies worldwide celebrate the new moon as a time of new beginnings. Maybe we can too. Then mid-month, on the 15th, it's the full moon. That's when the moon is the furthest away from the sun in the cycle. When it can't go any further and starts to return, and as we know or can imagine, since before time began, when there were humans, when they saw that big shining moon up in the sky, they either looked at it with awe or in fear, depending on their culture. New moon, full moon. We start today with two major planetary pairs. We have Mars opposite Pluto. Mars is the planet of strong will, of action, of getting things done and moving. So Mars would be when you want to do something and you're maybe stuck a little bit, so you get forceful. And then if you're stuck, say some more, you may become aggressive. So Mars is known for force and aggression. With Pluto, Pluto commonly referred to as fire, as elemental fire, bubbling up from us. Fire that can be either channeled towards something creative or fire that consumes us, eats us up. So if we have Mars, force, with Pluto, fire, kind of shows us the world of today. Those two big wars, one in Ukraine, other in the Middle East, and the current situation in the United States. A lot of aggression here towards the US election. We also have the sun trine with Saturn. Sun represents, again, our individuality, way in the world, the way we master things going along. And Saturn represents the bottom line, what's real, sometimes known as father, the one who keeps it all together. So Sun with Saturn could refer to the father figure, someone who keeps us secure and safe. Or Sun with Saturn, conversely, can be irresponsibility, where you can't quite get done what you need to get done. You're blocked for some reason. So the two big pairs in the sky, I'd say, for November 5th would be Mars with Pluto and Sun with Saturn. If we add the planet Uranus right there, the planet of change, the planet of fresh air and freedom, we notice a couple of dynamics. One is that we have, again, Sun with Saturn and Sun with Uranus. That's planetary pairs that usually refer to old versus new, tradition versus the new thing. So we have Saturn Sun Saturn and Sun Uranus. What's it going to be? The old or the new election day? We see also we have Uranus trine with Pluto, freedom with intensity. We see in the sky right now for a world transit, we've got that Uranus trine Pluto, started a couple of years ago and runs till 2032. Now that's a long transit, reminiscent of the 1960s when we had Uranus conjunct Pluto from 1960 or so to 1972. And we all know what happened there. The world turned upside down. We all know what happened then. There was lots of freedom and lots of intensity. We had guys growing their hair, women throwing out their bras. And for some, we had a lot of musical freedom. We started exploring our consciousness with psychedelics. And we had the Vietnam War and race riots. So it's a tough pair sometimes, and sometimes really beautiful. Uranus with Pluto. Now in the sky, we've got Saturn conjunct Neptune for 3 years. Just started in last April and runs till April of 2027 for 3 full years. Saturn's what's real and Neptune's what's ideal. They're opposites. Saturn's the bottom line, reality, and Neptune's our imagination, flow. So let's see where that takes us. We see here in the horoscope how they look right now on November 5th, 2024, Saturn with Neptune, 15 degrees apart, which is the maximum they can be in archetypal astrology. And watch this. On this day, on November 5th, we've got the moon with Saturn and Neptune. The moon again being our sensitivity, our inner feelings, private side, in a sextile with Saturn. Saturn again, the bottom line, what's real, or being stuck. So moon with Saturn can refer to emotional security, moon emotion, Saturn security, or emotional insecurity, spaced out. Any slight thing will get us crazy, get us all worked up. Very sensitive, moon with Saturn. Also, moon with Neptune, the moon with our imagination, with empathy, with compassion. Moon with Neptune, known for lending a hand, being generous and wonderful. Yet at the same time, it can be Neptune, besides being what's ideal, can be delusion or confusion. So it could be we think we need to help everybody all of the time and overdoing it. You know anybody like that? Maybe they have moon with Neptune. Okay, so moon, Saturn, Neptune. Then we go to the planet Mercury. Mercury, the mind, the thinking mechanism in there, and also how we communicate in oh so many ways. So Mercury with Saturn can refer to a system of some kind. Saturn like being a track, and Mercury a train riding on that track. Sometimes when we're young, well, many times when we're young in our family, we have some religious background of some kind, and some of us may find it appealing and want to continue in that on that train. Mercury with Saturn, with tradition, with where it's safe. And some of us find that train a little too big for that track. Our personal train does not feel comfortable. So we reject that track for maybe a larger one, so to say. Okay, Mercury, Saturn, and Mercury, Neptune. If Mercury Saturn would be studying real things like and expressing real things like perhaps law or medicine or engineering, something practical, Mercury with Neptune would refer to imagination with the mind. Think music, poetry, art, and dance. So they're opposites again. Saturn, the bottom line, Neptune, imagination. Mercury, Mercury, Saturn, Mercury, Neptune. Continuing with the planet Venus. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, Aphrodite, aesthetics, pleasure through the senses. With Saturn, could be a secure love affair, secure marriage, where your heart is deep in something what you consider to be real and safe. Get off there. Or could be troubles with the heart. Saturn can restrict. So it could be Venus, Saturn, restriction of the heart. Then Venus with Neptune. If Venus again is the heart, openness, sensitivity, beauty, with Neptune, many times referred to as the transcendent, as unitive consciousness, as the one. So take your heart with unitive consciousness. It's probably feels pretty good. Think of things like spiritual practice or something along that line. Yet again, Neptune, besides being ideal, can be delusion, can be confusion. So it could be that you could take your heart and all you got and put it into something that turns out to be not too good for you. Okay, you're deluded, then you're all upset and stuff. So Venus, Saturn, Venus, Neptune. But there's more. Back one more. The planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. Jupiter is known for expansion, for growth, for success, and generosity. So when we add the planets Saturn and Neptune with Jupiter, we get Jupiter with Saturn, expansion of security, expansion of tradition, following in the footsteps of what is. Or could be Jupiter with Saturn, expanding too much into tradition and what is commonly followed. And that can be trouble. Some people might feel threatened by the expanded version of what they believe. And Jupiter Neptune, usually referred to as big flow. Again, Jupiter's big, growing, and Neptune is flowing. What's ideal? Poetry, music, dancing. Jupiter Saturn, Jupiter Neptune. So let's add them up. Moon with Saturn Neptune, Mercury Saturn Neptune, Venus Saturn Neptune, and Jupiter Saturn Neptune. Saturn Neptune, very important on election day and for the next few years. Is it this or is it that? Can't tell. Saturn Neptune also refers to actualizing dreams, where what's ideal meets the road and we drive there. Big month for the planet Mars. We notice Mars with the three outer planets. Mars again is force, our strong will, how we get things done, how we tend to eat. We've got Mars with Uranus, Uranus being sudden change, the fresh new thing. So putting our efforts and our will into what's new, what we think is new anyway, and going for it in that way. Can go overboard too. We've got Mars with Neptune. Okay, Neptune's what's ideal. Mars is action. You could say moving towards wholeness. Okay, moving towards what's ideal. Or moving towards confusion. Neptune delusion. And Mars opposite Pluto. Talked about that earlier. Mars force with Pluto intensity. So it's a pretty strong month here for lots of Mars with the outer planets. And then if we throw in Saturn and the Sun, like I showed earlier as well, right in the middle there, especially on election day, it's identifying with security, tradition, what was, or irresponsibility, not quite being able to get what we want when we want it. We add the planet Mercury, we see right here. Oops, let's fix that up a little bit. We've got Mercury with the three outer planets on November 5th. Let's start with Mercury trine Mars, speaking your mind in a forceful way, or it could be spoken too forcefully. Mercury with Mars. We have Mercury opposite Uranus, sometimes known as the aha moment, when things come together and you start to understand what you didn't before. Mercury Neptune, talked about that too. Mercury, the mind and our communication style, with Neptune, with what's ideal. Or Mercury Neptune, talking about delusion. We got some of that going on for the election. And Mercury Pluto, our mind digging under the surface, reaching for the prize. What's it going to be? So all month, especially November 5th, Mercury and Mars in the foreground. And here's Mercury Pluto in chart examples. The Mideast War, with Joe Biden, Mars square Pluto, Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, Mars trine Pluto. He's not doing a very good job, I think, because there's no diplomacy anywhere. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, who's in charge of the Middle East war. And there's lots of destruction and mass killing going on. Mars conjunct Pluto. Also, Ukraine war. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, with Mars trine Pluto. And now, here's a little fun for us all. The birth charts of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Let's see what we find here. Let's start with Kamala Harris. Let's see. She's born with a Uranus and Pluto conjunction. She's from the 60s. What year? 1964, the midpoint, I guess. Pretty close, only 2 degrees apart. Freedom with intensity. Also with the planet Venus, beauty and love. It's not bad, huh? Let's go to Donald Trump, and he's got the moon with Mars, okay? That could be aggressive emotionally. If he feels slighted at all in his emotions, he's going to come out strong, letting him have it. We notice too that Kamala Harris has the moon with Mars, just like Donald Trump. See, moon, Mars. And it's interesting how they both have the moon and Mars in fire signs. We see that Mars right there in Leo and moon in Sagittarius. And for Kamala Harris, it's Mars in Leo and the moon in Aries. But in the case of Kamala Harris, okay, she's also got Mars with Jupiter. Now, to me, Mars, Moon, Mars, and Jupiter are three planets that I have in my chart altogether. And for many years, I didn't quite understand what that was about because I thought that Moon and Mars just referred to angry emotions and reacting if someone punched me out a little bit. But I learned through time that Moon and Mars with Jupiter can also refer to the initiated Mars, the Mars that's been through its own fire, that allows me to think of Moon, Mars, and generous Jupiter as gentle bedside manner. So maybe Kamala Harris is a little more sensitive in some respects than Donald Trump. We see also Trump is born on the full moon, sun opposite moon, with Uranus, the planet of change, of fresh air, open the window. And on the shadow side, Uranus can become too free, aloof, unattached, making grand statements that don't mean anything. Also, Kamala Harris, born with the full moon, sun, opposite moon, with Mercury, okay? Sun with Mercury, believing what we think, okay? Attaching importance to our mind and communication, and moon with Mercury, being able to, again, bring a sensitivity to her mind, being able to understand maybe the needs of people in a sensitive way instead of just always making outrageous statements. So maybe enough for that. If you want to look at it further, just in the video, just freeze it right here and you can have a little party watching both of their charts. And on the campaign trail 2024, we see Kamala Harris at the podium, speaking, communicating, perhaps with sensitivity, with her full moon and Mercury. And there's Donald Trump in a Trump garbage truck, looking like a garbage man. I guess that appeals to some people. I don't know. So that's a brief rundown on November 5th, 2024. I think it's the most substantial day of the year and will have repercussions for many years to come. Could get a little messy, but hey, it's the US. That's how things are around here. And before I go, I want to show you two more things. Last week in Mill Valley, I got to see Stanislav Grof and Brigitte Grof at a showing of Stan's movie, The Way of the Psychonaut. Oh, there may be 100 people there or so. Enjoying the movie, enjoying Stan's company. And I even got a picture. Hey! And one more thing, we want to say fare thee well to Phil Lesh, who died last week at 84 years old, founding member of the Grateful Dead, and beloved musician on the stage for 60 years. So thanks for joining me, everybody, at World Transits Today, running down U.S. Presidential Election Day 2024.